If you've seen my Aunt Rocky lately, you may notice something has changed about her. She has this glow, this new self-confidence that seemed to be missing before. But what brought this on? We sat down to talk about generational curses for this episode, and while I did learn a lot about our family, what I learned about her has made me feel like I even know her better now. Let's meet Rocky.
So my name's Rocky. I am Savannah's aunt. Her mom is my sister. I am 40, almost 41 years old. I have 4 kids. They're 20, 19, 15, and 8. And I do have a grandbaby who is 3 months old and another one on the way. I heavy equipment operator, work my butt off, all that fun stuff.
So to give a little bit of background, for anybody who doesn't know our family, we're going to give some names and who they are just so that when we're talking about them later, it starts to make sense. So my mom is the oldest of 6. She and my Aunt Rocky have the same father, not the same mother. So when we talk about the Strittenberger side, it's not my mom's side. It's my papa's side. My papa is my mom and Aunt Rocky's father. Gene, that runs in our family also.
Yep. And heart disease. Disease, and I think that plays a role in it as well. Mm-hmm. So I think there's 3 main causes. The heart disease for one, because your heart's struggling and, things like that. Sometimes you're limited on what you can do. The diabetes, type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is very strong in our family. So I think that affects your weight as well. And your third one is your gallbladder. So even though your gallbladder is a filter for the food and things like that, we all have gallbladder issues too. So I think those 3 main things is what causes a lot of that to happen. And then we struggle with that, whether to maintain weight or lose weight. So I had to have mine removed. I was having issues for many years. And it was part of that. It could go back to the eating problems, to be honest with you. Because I was heavy from day one, you know what I mean? Like I struggled with my weight. Everyone's like, oh, you're big boned. And, I went through like an eating disorder where I would starve myself and work out nonstop because I wanted to be like my siblings who were stick figures, like literally skin and bone. And I never understood why, I was heavy and I did everything the same. And so, as I got older and, trying different diets and different food and things like that, I ended up having major gallbladder issues and, having it removed. It was going to be an emergency surgery to have it removed. And so, yeah.
How old were you when it removed?
I had it removed 2 years ago. So I was 38.
Were you heavy as a teenager? Because I remember you being in sports and everything. I don't remember you being heavy.
Yeah. So sorry if I get emotional here.
Okay.
So I played sports ever since like KBL, that's what it was called. And, you're not even in school and, you're playing sports and soccer and all that stuff. And I even remember the first time I actually remember, I can say I understood I was heavy. My dad gave me, a protein bar and I didn't understand, I thought just protein for my game or something like that. And, I found out that it was, like for dieting and, I would get the, oh, you don't need that. You can go without that. kids, you know, like the siblings getting ice cream. No, Rocky, you don't need that. You know, just things like that.
Yeah.
And I would say I had to 10. I can tell you I have no hard feelings for Dad doing that. I did, let's just be honest, like I did, but I don't now. I think that as you get older, you understand. When you become a parent, you understand you want the best for your kids. You try and do everything you can to make their life better. And now Dad's mom, Lila, was very heavy, right? So she had diabetes, she had a gallbladder issue, you know, things like that, but she was super heavy. And out of Dad being the oldest out of 3 brothers, having to take care of the family and the kids, he's seen his mom struggle. You know, he's seen what it was like with her being heavy, people making fun of her, because back then, you know, bullies, whatever you want to call them, you know, they were made fun of. Not only were they poor because she couldn't work as much as, you know, like what we can do now, but she couldn't get around very good. I mean, she was thinner back in the day, but you know, if you want to talk about what's thin, what's not thin, what's heavy, you know, and so I can see where he was so worried and knew how his mom and what he went through that he never wanted his kids to go through that. Right. So Dad was always worried about weight. And I was one of the kids that had weight. Didn't matter what I did, I had weight.
I always take what Papa says with a grain of salt, because I know he never means it maliciously. Right. He just doesn't have like that filter of like sugar coating, you know? So he never means to like say, hey, you're fat. But the way he says it, it's like, oh, Papa.
Yep. Yes, he's very direct, but his heart is always in the right spot, you know? And it goes back to his way of growing up, how he what he remembers about it, and doesn't want anyone else to be like that.
Well, I think because of the Strittenberger height gene. So just to give a little background on my papa, actually just the Strittenbergers in general, we come from the land of giants. The men in our family start off at like 6'4" and just go up.
Right.
So.
Right. How tall is your mom?
She's probably my height, 5'9", 5'10".
Is she?
Yeah. The 3 brothers, Papa, Uncle Joe, and Uncle Jeff, grew up like not really taking shit from anybody because they were so big. I guess maybe Papa didn't really ever have to sugarcoat anything, because who was going to say a fucking word to him?
Right.
So he never really had to like kind of mind his P's and Q's, because nobody was going to confront him about the shit he was saying.
Exactly. He had to be Billy Badass, though. They all did. And that was because they were more poor. And as, you know, their mom, things like that, they didn't have their dad around, you know, and they just had to have that tough skin.
Well, Mom has told me stories about like how Grandpa Ron, he would take the 3 boys to like the bar and stuff and leave them on his motorcycle, and Papa was just in charge of making sure that his younger brothers didn't fall off the bike while his dad was in drinking and stuff. So it was a very different time for them. And growing up, Mom was always terrified of guns and stuff. And I kind of asked her about it one day, like, why were we never really exposed to firearms or anything? And she said she was always scared because growing up, when they would be in the car, if they ever got in like a road rage incident or anything like that, Papa would just get out and pull somebody out of their car and then just beat the fuck out of them. And Mom was always afraid that there was going to be a gun involved. Somebody was going to shoot him. So we never like talked about guns, that we were never exposed to them. So it's kind of funny, not funny. It's interesting how that kind of trickles downhill.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then raising your kids to be tougher, you know, and have that thick skin. And I think that's kind of where now my kids, you know, I was raised to be tough. You know, I was the thicker one. I was kind of raised more like the boys, strong, athletic, go, straight A student, you know, like all this stuff. And I was always trying to be perfect for my dad. Always. That was, you know, I could never be thin enough. So I would work out and work out and work out. And, you know, as I finally had kids, it was changing that pattern of you don't have to be thick skinned, but you're going to stand up for yourself, you know? And, yeah, kind of funny how it trickles down.
Aunt Robin has always been, she's got like a similar body type to Jake where she's always been super thin as far back as I can remember. So how is that as her sibling when you worked so hard to cut the weight and watch what you eat and all that stuff, and then having a sibling, I guess, that had the body type that Papa liked or approved of, or what was that like for you?
It fucking sucked. I'm sorry. It did. I was always judged. I was, you know, and you know, I guess that's how I felt. I don't know if they really judged me or not, but I felt like I was compared to her all the time. And you know, like we shared a room for so long, and it was the mental, right? The anxiety, all that stuff really played a role, as to wanting to be like her, you know? And she would always they called her like a bird because she would just peck at her food and she wouldn't eat a whole lot. So that's what I did, you know, and it just did not matter what I did. I could never have that same body type as her.
That's gotta be frustrating.
Heck yeah. I think honestly, that's where, a lot of my anxiety and things I have now that I struggle with and the panic attacks, stemmed back from little and never feeling like I was good enough. I could never be good in my dad's eyes. So, like I said, no matter how many sports I played, how good I was, if I was an all-star, straight A's, never missing a day in school. I had perfect attendance until I was in 8th grade. And I had to miss one day, from school. And I did everything I possibly could to please him because I felt like I wasn't good enough because I wasn't pretty enough. I wasn't skinny enough. And yeah.
That's a lot for a kid to take on.
Yep, it is. But it changed me in the fact that, I don't judge my kids that way. You know, I have four kids, who are all heavy in their own way. And we are an active family. We're working out. We're not like these junk food and that's all we eat. We're a healthy lifestyle, always experimenting with new foods and how to make it taste better with vegetables and things like that. And but I believe they got more of that gene for me of this is how it is.
Yeah. How long have you been trying the different, like the new foods and things like that? How long have you been trying to go down healthy meals and things like that?
With my family or with myself?
Let's do your family.
Okay. So, well, Clayton is 20 and he is type 1 diabetic. So ever since my kids have been born, they've always been known and exposed to more healthier food, try new things, not a lot of fast food. And as each kid kind of come along and have their own taste in food, we would try new things. Now, I went vegan for 4 years now. And I didn't do it for anybody but for myself. I tried to talk to the kids and, hey, the whole family. Nobody was having it. And I was like, that's okay. That's okay. I'm going to do it for myself because I'm sick of the way I am. I'm doing it for myself. Cut out all carbonation. I've been carbonation free for 4 years as well. And super hard, but I will never go back to it. And because I honestly think as my kids have seen me stick with it, and them trying vegan food and more, but I love cheese, so I can't really call myself a vegan, right? Because I love cheese. But more like the vegetables, let's try different things, it has really brought them into this like, hey, like what instead of like a meat lover's lasagna, it's a vegan lasagna that is all kinds of vegetables, and that's their favorite. They pick that over meat.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
At what age did you start to recognize the signs of weight gain being like a pattern in the family?
Probably I was a teenager, and I had looking at like the different cousins and stuff. So, Uncle Jeff, he has.
Were healthy habits like exercise or nutrition ever talked about in the house with, because I know there was a lot of you kids, so maybe meals and stuff were basically what was easiest to feed a bunch of people, low cost, whether it was nutritious or not. Was that kind of stuff ever talked about at home?
No. It was a lot of macaroni and cheese, hot dogs, spaghetti. Honestly, I remember them trying to force me to eat broccoli, and I still to this day will not eat broccoli. But, and like corn, green beans, but same thing. Exactly what you said. You have a lot of kids. You're trying to do whatever you can to feed your family. A lot of Hamburger Helper, things like that wasn't the best, but really I was the only one they really worried about with having weight. So it was, Rocky, don't eat so much. No, Rocky, you can't have ice cream. Really, you could do without that. We didn't drink soda. We didn't, that's just absolutely was not allowed for kids. So, I remember Kool-Aid, I remember drinking that and water. So, but like I said, I had Papa sneaking me, what I would think would be, protein bar back then or something. It was more for diet, and sneaking. I know at one time he tried giving me diet pills, and it just his heart was in the right spot. And if we want to talk about weight, like I was muscular. I was going to the gym. At 8th grade, I could leg press 350 pounds. By the time I was 18, it was 615. I could, leg lift that. I always worked on my legs. I always had a big bum. Muscles, like I was the one, fighting the boys, arm wrestling, took state champ at one time, but because I was constantly working out. My heaviest in high school, I was a size 20. So I can't tell you, I definitely over 200 pounds, but by the time I was 18, I weighed 205 pounds.
Even being little, I never remember you being heavy. I only remember you ever having an athletic build. Like you had broader shoulders, which is the Sternberger thing. But I don't remember you ever like packing on pounds. You always had like a softball body. Like you played softball.
I worked my bum off for that, but it was still a lot, like what I wouldn't give to have that kind of body,
Yeah.
But society and the way things are in the household you're raised in of skin and bone women, it wasn't okay.
Mm-hmm.
The boys sure the heck didn't like it either.
Yeah.
It was like, yeah.
So recently you went and had surgery to help lose some of the weight. Do you want to talk about that?
So I ended up having a sleeve. Like I said, I went vegan, right? I went out of carbonation, working out, things like that. It was not enough. I was going to my doctor, just really trying to focus on myself because I was no longer happy. My panic attacks, my anxiety about how much I weighed was really bothering me. I was having a really hard time with it. So after doctor's advice, things like that, I went ahead and had the sleeve surgery. And my biggest regret is I should have done it sooner. I wish I would have done it sooner.
So worth it then?
Absolutely worth it. And let me just say that having the surgery was not an easy fix. I still struggle. I still have weight to lose. There's a lot of weight that I won't lose. And the doctor explained it to me. It's because of how I'm built, how my genetics are. It's like my body always thinks I'm going into a starvation mode. So it's always going to pack on weight and try and store it because it doesn't know when its next meal is going to be. That's the easiest way to put it.
Do you wish a doctor had that sooner before you had to work so hard in the gym and go through an eating disorder and stuff that a doctor would have said, hey, you're just built different?
I don't think I would have listened. When the doctor was going to admit me to the hospital for an eating disorder, and the eating disorder was I was starving myself. And I said, look at me. I'm over 215 pounds. I'm not starving. I'm perfectly fine. I have weight to lose. And they said no. I was at the point where my kidneys were shutting down. I was starving myself. And it's the way our bodies are built. There's nothing else. And that's I wish other people in our family, and especially, as we have more kids and our kids have kids, there is something in our genes that causes that, and it is what it is. There's nothing we can do about it except be aware of it, keep working on it, and you're always going to have, that big build. You're going to do that, but you can fight it. You can overcome it.
Yeah. Even the women in our family have similar builds to the males in our family, which is a terrible thing to pass down to the girls in our family. But just like the broader shoulders, tall, and I don't know. It's just unfair. It's unfair that we're built like the Strittenberger boys who have a good almost foot on us.
Yep. Exactly. And the foot itself, like big feet runs
Yeah.
in our family, right? And I think that's because
Yeah.
we're actually meant to have that big stature, you know, like you said, the broad shoulders, barrel chested, and, you know, all of that. And the women got it. And I think when you look back at, you know, Papa's grandma and things like that, they were heavy, but they were also very strong women, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's not till the past couple generations that we've had the men and the boys stick around and be a part of their family and work for their family and stuff. And I think that gene kind of passed on to the women have to be strong. The women have to, you know, get out there and work and take care of their family, and maybe we adapted that way.
Had great grandpa Ron already passed by the time you were born?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever seen pictures of him or knew how he was built? Was he heavy at all?
He was skinny. Yeah. Tall
Okay.
and skinny.
So mainly just women then.
Yeah, mainly women. And I think, well, and if you look back at kind of how all of us in the past, and you look at pictures, you have some who go through puberty that kind of puff out, get a little chunky, and then, you know, they start going thinner and kind of filling out into their own. I hoped mine would have been opposite, you know, I'm like, okay, puberty, and I'm gonna, you know, go tall and skinny, and it never worked out. I just went outwards. But the so you look back, we all have that, but I guess it's more or less who kind of goes taller and broader in the shoulders and who kind of stays on the shorter side. Because we're all, you know, we're all tall. Like, I'm the shortest out of the 6 kids. So, I don't know.
Yeah, and Chelsea is taller than me.
Right.
So she got more of the Strittenberger height than I did. I got stunted. But then Zoe is 5'7", and she hasn't grown in years. She might just always be a cute 5'7", but she hates it. She wants to be tall like the rest of us. And the poor thing she wears a size 11 shoe for being 5'7".
Yeah.
And she's just like, I want to grow, but it's just not happening for me.
Yep. Well, and then if you look at, let's see, who is it? On Papa's side, his dad's sister, so his Aunt Jerry, she was tall. And her kids are tall. But Aunt Jerry was on the heavier side too. So it wasn't, it's, you know, like, so I do know his sister had, you know, or I should say his aunt had that heavier side too. So I don't know how far and like how it kind of branches back and forth, but definitely, you know, us Strittenbergers got some type of gene that made us try and be more strong, I think.
Yeah, and Grandma Lila's mom describes as basically being busty but having a small waist. Now, she said she could have been heavy based on like pictures that she's seen, but just like we talked about before we started recording, the size for back then for would have been great grandma for me. For that time, sizes have changed completely from what they are now. Like, if you think about people saying, oh, Marilyn Monroe was heavy because she was a size 12, like, I would fucking kill to be a size 12.
Right.
And a size 12 ain't shit now. So Grandma Stella, Grandma Lila's mom, I guess, was small, and then Grandma Lila was heavy. But, just like we talked about earlier, Grandma Lila also had diabetes, And again, for that time, I feel like medical advancements and things hadn't really happened. We didn't really know what diabetes presented like or looked like for that time. And I feel like she kind of got robbed out of maybe a semi-healthier body, or, you know, something, had they figured out that she had diabetes prior to when they did, because I guess she was already kind of heavy by the time they figured out that she was sick.
Right. And at the same time, like, that sweet tooth as well, you know, because I remember grandma always having candy cane. We were always making cookies, but that was for her grandkids, you know, like, she was always like, yep, this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. And she did not care about your weight. You know, she didn't really think about sugar and, you know, that heaviness. It was all about being happy. And
yeah,
that's what I remember most, you know, is like, she got frustrated about her weight, as she got older or heavier. She couldn't walk as much, you know, and it was a struggle in the grocery store and, you know, things like that. But she made sure all of us kids were happy, you know, all of her grandkids, and she didn't care. She didn't treat us any differently.
So Grandma Lila gained weight with her diabetes, and obviously healthy eating and habits and things like that weren't really present at the time, it sounds like. But even with her having diabetes, Uncle Jake, who is the youngest of the 6 kids, also has diabetes, and he was diagnosed fairly young. I want to say early teenager.
Yeah, I think he was 9.
So a young kid, and he's a beanstalk. I mean, he is just tall, skinny as a post. And I remember even when we were younger, he was still allowed to partake in the ice cream cones and stuff that Papa would do for us before we got to go play at the park and things like that. We would always do ice cream cones with like these waffle cones. And Jake was never told not to eat that kind of stuff, even with diabetes. So
right.
He was never really steered on the path of like, hey, you have diabetes, we need to change up the way you eat, we need to make sure that you're healthy, that kind of stuff. He was allowed to just be a normal kid as far as his eating habits. And I've never seen the guy heavy, ever.
Right. Never. Nope. But he struggles to put on weight. He actually takes like protein and stuff to try and put weight on.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that weird? Like,
I just think it's really interesting that diabetes can really take you in two completely separate directions as far as your body type.
Right. But that's where, like, I don't have any type of diabetes whatsoever. And I, even at my heaviest, I wasn't even a pre-diabetic. And so, like, that skipped my aspect of it. You know, Robin, she doesn't have anything, and she's, you know, the skinny, she was always super skinny. She got busty, you know, as she, you know, growing up and things like that. And then, Jason, he was always, you know, tall, muscular, shoulder, strong build, things like that. So why it hit one and not the other, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't until I got diagnosed with PCOS and they started running like my A1C and stuff that they figured out that I was insulin resistant. I was having such a hard time cutting weight, and we were trying, you know, keto, and, you know, maybe we just don't eat out so much. Maybe you just need to have more steps in the day, all that kind of stuff. And I just could not get this weight off. And then once they ran my A1C and they were like, no, you're insulin resistant, we're going to put you on, first it was metformin. That didn't work for me. They put me on Trulicity. Then I lost 30 pounds in 3 months. Like, I changed nothing. I was still like eating what I was eating and not exercising anymore. But once my body was like finally able to do what it was supposed to do, then the weight came off no problem.
Wow. So not only it goes back to our three things. You have heart, you have diabetes, and you have gallbladder. And it sounds like even with the diabetes and that pancreas, with your insulin, and I didn't know that about you, where Clayton, my oldest, um, his pancreas was fused open, so his body was constantly making insulin. So his blood sugars were zero when he was born. Um, so they had to constantly feed him to try, and so his body, the insulin could go and get sugars and things like that to do something. Um, so they removed his pancreas and he became type 1, right? But what happens is the pancreas is one of your organs that does regrow. I wish that worked on all of our organs, but your pancreas does regenerate itself just like a lizard's tail type thing. Um, and when his regrew itself. It took several years, quite a few years, but half of those cells started working normally, and half of them are still fused open. So even though he's type 1, there are times that his pancreas will decide to start working and, do what it's supposed to do, and his blood sugars kind of stay normal. And then, it kind of does that. But um, we know that's a genetic thing. Um, and he kind of just got one of those rare things where instead of turning out like Jake and being a type 1, he was born like he got a double whammy, and it's like 1 in 500,000. So as far back as my history that I know on the family, no one in our family has this. But because of the diabetes and the type 1 being so high in our family, and I really think it goes back to the pancreas. And I think that's kind of like I talked about before with our weight. It's just how that genetic kind of works in our family.
How has your self-esteem or your confidence changed since you've lost weight?
It's completely different. Um, Obviously, it's gone up. It's been a roller coaster. Let's just say that. I have what do they call it? Like body dysphoria, where I still see myself heavy. I I remember the first time I bought a large shirt and put it on, and it fit me. I cried right there in the dressing room.
Aww.
I was bawling. I couldn't believe it. I joke now and say I'm a medium because I can wear a small and a medium. It just depends on the clothes. Um, but what's hard is I can look in the mirror and I still see a very heavy, unhappy person. I can physically do things now that I felt I couldn't do before. Um, my workouts have completely changed. Uh, just all of that has been different, but it's still wrapping my head around the fact that I can do that. I actually can go buy something in a medium and it fit. I can, you want me to go, I'm not a runner, but you want me to go walk 10 miles? I'll go walk it and feel just fine. You know, my knees, I've had surgery on both my knees, not due to weight, sport issues, but I noticed as the weight has come off, the arthritis pain has gone down. Um, so I see, there's a lot of benefits. My blood pressure medication, I'm barely taking it. I take it like every other day. because my doctor was like, you still kind of need it, but not really. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so there's so many benefits, and that's where I can say I regret that I didn't do it sooner.
Well, and just like you were saying earlier, like it's not a fast fix by any means, and it's not just like a reset for you to lose weight just so you can keep up with those same eating habits and things that you had before. What's been the hardest part now that you've lost the weight? What's your focus? Like, how do you make sure to stay on track now?
Okay, so I have to work out, because everybody, you have to. You really do. If you want to keep going, you have to work out. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I need to cardio and I need to do this and I need to do that. You need to keep your body moving. You need to keep your muscles moving. So I work out. My eating is still, I go back. I have a love-hate relationship with food. Um, I always will. And I know that about myself. So I tell myself every day, like okay, Rocky, you have to do this. You have to do this. Um, my issue, even from before weight loss, is I don't eat because I'm not hungry, right? So if you're not hungry, you don't need to
Mm-hmm.
eat, no big deal. And then you would realize it had been 3 days since my last meal. It had been 4 days since my last meal. And no wonder I'm shaky. No wonder, all this is, I feel like crap and I'm tired. And so I have to remind myself to eat. Um, Not all the time, but that's a struggle, that something I do, and it's a mental thing. It is because of how I was for so many years, most of my life, to be honest with you, that I don't think I'll ever get over it. Um, so it's a definite lifestyle change, but it is so much better. It's an easy, okay, I'm not gonna have this. Let's say you're gonna have like bacon and eggs and toast and all this stuff. It's like, let's say 3 eggs, 3 pieces of bacon, and 2 pieces of toast. Even by cutting that down in half makes a huge difference. And if,
Mm-hmm.
for the ones who do struggle, it's not just the food, it's not just the working out, it's the mental aspect as well.
I think for I don't want to speak for everybody in the family, but at least on myself, and I know I got it from my mom, and I know I definitely got it from my grandma because I remember doing this with her, is we're emotional eaters. So food isn't necessarily we look at, like, it's not something we look at and we're like, oh, this is going to give us energy, or we need to be, giving our body fuel or any of that stuff. We're like, we've had a really hard day and now we want Oreos, or I had a really shitty day and I just want a Pepsi, or, I'm not sure
Yeah.
if that's necessarily on the Strittenberger side, but it's such an unhealthy relationship with food, and it's such a hard thing to break. So that, I think, would be
Right.
my hardest thing, like with sleeve or being in your position, is like, it's not even necessarily about the calories and stuff. It's just like, this is what makes me happy.
Yeah. And I don't mean to interrupt you, but that was part of seeing a nutritionist and doing, like, going through the doctor stuff. That was what was really hard, is because they're like, well, what do you eat? And it's like, not really a whole lot of anything, and you're lactose intolerant, or I'm lactose intolerant. I'm a vegan, so it was really hard. And then they're like, how are you doing this? And then that's when the whole doing blood work, trying to figure out like your muscle mass, how your protein's working. I'm RH negative, so that added the extra protein. So my body wants to store it more. I have PCOS, so like all these things. And it was, my relationship, like I said, was love-hate. And I only loved the food because all of a sudden I would have energy because holy crap, I just ate a piece of cheese and some cashews and, like salad didn't do nothing for me. But when I needed to eat, that's what I would eat. I remember I was starving myself and eating half a head of lettuce a week. Like, yeah, like I was, it's a mental thing. Yeah. And like I said, I'll never get over it. But it's something I have to deal with and I struggle with every day. There's times like I'm hungry, I'm going to go make myself a cheese sandwich, and I have no issue whatsoever eating that. And I'm okay with that. Like, I don't look at it and go, oh my gosh, I just put sugar in my body. I just ate carbs. I don't look at it like that. At this point in time, I still have to say, I'm proud of you. You were hungry and you went and ate something. And I'm going on 3 years of doing that.
So 2 things that I just thought. The first one being that you just said a cheese fucking sandwich, and I got really sad because there's no meat on it because you're a vegan, and then also I love mayonnaise. So yep. You can't have mayonnaise either, so it's just bread and cheese, and that made me really sad.
I'm sorry. I spoil myself sometimes, and I'll like have some tomato on there. Like I'll have a slice of tomato on there as well, and I'm just like, oh, okay.
You're getting wild.
I know. But
party in the kitchen with cheese and the bread and the tomato.
Right. But that's, I guess, a lot of people, they're just like, oh my gosh, like you're actually eating, and it's, I guess if you talk to a lot of people or different women or men who've had eating disorders, it's a struggle. It really is. And it took me a long time to actually admit that I had an eating disorder and know that it's okay to talk about it because there's other people who deal with it. And that I'll get through it. Like I'm doing so much better, than I was. And that's all I can say is every day I'm making myself better. Every, lunge I do, I'm telling myself, you're getting better. You're not that person that you thought you were, and going back to the childhood and not thinking I was ever good enough for my dad and that, doing everything I possibly can to make him proud of me because I was heavy and, just all of that to it's okay. And every day I'm just going to keep making myself just a little bit better.
I think there's such a common misconception about what an eating disorder is. And people, I think a lot of times picture somebody as just like binging and then making themselves sick to get rid of it. And they don't realize that even just the body dysmorphia and feeling like you're heavier than you are and not like going whole days or even, meals not eating is also an eating disorder. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, overeating and overindulging is also an eating disorder. So it looks like a bunch of different things.
Right. And I honestly think if you look down and you talk to anyone in our family who's had any type of weight issue, you're gonna find at some point in their life there was an eating disorder or still is. And I honestly think it's because we have so many of these that are, tall, skinny, but then you'll find a handful of them that are heavier and they're like, well, what did I do wrong? And that's where we're, realize that you didn't do anything wrong. You're not doing anything wrong.
I want to touch back on something that you said and use it as kind of an educational moment because I also don't know a whole lot about this. You said you were RH negative. What exactly does that mean as far as your body? Like, what does RH negative mean?
Okay, so my blood type is A positive, so I'm RH negative, and you can either get it from both sides of the parents or one. And my body carries more protein, and I have a higher white blood count than I do red blood cells. Um, so let's say somebody like they draw labs to see if you're sick and you have an infection, and they'll say, "Oh, you have 1,000, count of your white blood cells. You have an infection somewhere. Here's an antibiotic." My body runs on minimum 2,000. So because of that, it is I can't give blood because you can't pull that protein out properly. So I've tried and I can never give blood. But at the same good part of that is it's really hard for me to get sick. My body is constantly fighting itself by having all that extra protein in those white blood cells. So when I do get sick, I'm sick. The only time the RH factor has ever messed with my life was when I was pregnant. When you get pregnant, your body automatically thinks it's an infection, sends everything to it to kill it off. So you get a RhoGAM shot, and it's changed, even from my first kid to my last kid, it's changed by how many times you have that shot. And what that RhoGAM does is stop it, and it tells your body it's okay. Like, this is a baby. We want it to grow and, kind of move on. And that's been the only time I've had an issue with being RH negative.
If you don't mind me asking, have you ever had a miscarriage because of it?
Yes. So I got pregnant when I was 16, and we didn't know what was going on. I started bleeding and having issues, and I lost her when I was 6 months pregnant. And it was, by the time they figured out I was RH negative, what had happened was my body kept fighting her off as she was trying to grow, and the RhoGAM was too late, and I ended up losing her. So, yep.
How,
hard.
at what point during the pregnancy were you supposed to have that shot?
So, like I said, it's changed from the time I first, my oldest being 20, almost 21. Back then, I had it as soon as I found out I was pregnant. Then at your 6 months, right before delivery, right after delivery. And it worked with my first kid, my second kid, Maddie, third kid. I had it right when I found out I was pregnant. And then right before delivery, right after delivery. By the time Carson come around, I had it right when I found out I was pregnant. And I had it at 6 months and then right after delivery. And what happened, I think it's changing again as well. You definitely need it when you find out you're pregnant, and that's so your body really can stop what it's doing. There's a baby growing, things like that. And I think what's going on is RhoGAM's getting so much better that it's lasting longer to where, you don't need it at the 6 months. Now it's right after delivery. And what that does is it relaxes your body. So you're not like, your hormones and everything are going crazy after you have a baby anyways. And so the RhoGAM kind of relaxes that blood and your protein, so the rest of your hormones and the rest of your body can do what it's supposed to do after delivery. Otherwise, you're going to be in overdrive, and that adds more to postpartum because your body's trying to do too much. So, but it could be, like Carson's 8 years old. So once again, it could change. Because technology or medicine and all that stuff, everything's getting better and they're always doing better advances. So it's always changing. I just know I'm not having any more kids. I don't need it anymore. And, I'm good with that.
Mm-hmm. Is there any advice that you would give to somebody who is also trying to break like a similar generational curse, whether it be, unhealthy eating habits in the family or maybe eating disorders or body dysmorphia or anything like that?
Definitely research. I think knowledge is power for anything. So do as much research as you can. If I had more family members to talk to find out sooner, and not try and deal with it myself, more support, things like that, then I probably would have pieced together that family history of like our weight, our medical stuff, and having that research, having that knowledge also gives you people to lean on, because that means you're not doing it alone. And if like for me, I'm open about my weight loss and, even my weight gain. And if I can help somebody else, understand a little bit more, I'm grateful. If I can help somebody not deal with the pain that I went through, or even, just a sliver of that, then it's all worth it. I'm willing to take every struggle I've had and share that to make somebody else just a little bit better. And so I would definitely say that knowledge, like reach out, ask, no matter what it is. Even when people are scared to talk about it, there's the anonymous groups, right? That nobody has to know who you are, but just talking about whether, eating disorder, because like you said, there are so many of them, there's someone that's gonna relate, and reaching out and saying, hey, is this normal? Is this not normal? And honestly, if you're reaching out, it's not normal. And there's ways to, if you could prevent doing what I have to do and struggle every day with forcing yourself to eat, having to remind yourself to eat. And that's sad. I mean, I know it's sad. I know, but I love my coffee. You don't have to remind me, not to drink my coffee, because that, like, hallelujah, that's how I went about my life, and if I can make someone's life a little bit better, then that's what we're here for, right? Take our struggle and turn it into something positive.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode and maybe even learned something. If you want updates about the show, please follow the show on Instagram at Pink Plus Podcast. And don't forget to follow us on whatever platform you're listening on so that you get alerted when new episodes are released. Hope you have a great week. Catch you next time.